My name is Shipley. My pronouns are she, her, and my involvement with TeenTix is that I am a newsroom writer in their press corps.
Very cool. My name is Vivian Hua, she, her pronouns, and I am a filmmaker, an arts journalist, and the executive director of Northwest Film Forum.
So I want to get into this knackish thing. I just want to say I am so excited that I finally met someone else who likes ketchup chips as much as I do.
I'm so jealous.
Such a crazy coincidence.
I'm jealous you have ketchup chips, but I have sea salt and vinegar chips. Wow, it just disappeared.
I got some too.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So the first question is, what kind of art were you interested in during high school, and what are you interested in now?
High school, I guess I was into photography for a while. And I also did ceramics and thought that was really interesting, but it was also kind of bad at it. They had ceramics classes that are cool, so that was nice. I remember I left one molding over spring break, and when I came back, it was just like complete ball of mold. But anyway. And now I'm into filmmaking, I guess, just arts journalism / interdisciplinary multimedia stuff.
So you were interested in like photography and ceramics. How did you kind of bridge that into being involved in film?
I didn't for a really long time, so I never thought that you could make a living off of art at all. Growing up, that was not an option. So I went to college for sociology and did graphic design stuff kind of like on my own. Didn't go to school for it, but that was like my job for a really long time. And then film was just, it's a long and meandering story. How about you?
For me, and I've been interested in film since I was like pretty young, like in 4th grade. I remember it all started when my dad showed me Reservoir Dogs, which was probably inappropriate to show a Quentin Tarantino movie to a 10-year-old, but you know, it got me started, and here we are.
What kind of films do you like?
I tend to like ones that have a lot of really emotional draws. One of my favorite movies, it's kind of pretentious, but I saw it at the Seattle International Film Festival. It's just a French film called Luna. How about you?
I'd say Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind is my all-time.
That one's a really good one.
Yeah, it fits your emotional criteria as well. What was your most pivotal arts moment?
When I was younger, I had applied to be a juror for the Seattle International Film Festival, and I in no way thought that I was qualified. I was just like this little film nerd. I was in 8th grade, but I was so excited. I remember when I found out that I got on the jury, I was in a hotel room in Utah with my mom, and I was just so excited. And I remember like when I went to the meetings, I didn't really feel like I belonged there. I felt I had somehow conned my way into this, but I was just so ecstatic to be there. And so I remember at the award ceremony, talking with the guy who was managing the jury that I was on, thanking him for this really cool experience. And I was talking about like how amazing it was. And he just turned to me and he said, "You belong here." So it was really impactful to have someone who I really respected and look up to say like, "You belong here, you're a part of this space." It just really was a moment where I then started like taking myself more seriously, you know, and it was a really validating experience.
That's awesome.
How about you?
I would say it's less arts related and just more life philosophy related. Growing up, I was like pretty sheltered, very strict family, and very limited worldview in a lot of ways, but always had like this underground streak in me, like underdog person. Which I still am. In high school, I had like the civics class where the teacher basically like told us to question the way the government functioned and like poked a lot of holes in a lot of things that I just took to be as like truths about the world. Because someone told me to take them as truths about the world. And because he poked all these holes in this stuff that made a lot of sense, it started like, it asked me to question a lot of structures and things that are in place. And now I think a lot of just my art practice and life in general are around dismantling structures and creating new ones when they're not equitable or not serving the greater good.
Okay. Why is arts access an essential human right?
For myself, arts growing up was specifically writing. I haven't mentioned writing, but writing has always been like my main art form, I would say. It's been a lifesaver, frankly. It's like such great therapy. It's such a great artistic outlet. And I think a lot about if people had traumas or difficulties in life and they couldn't find an art outlet, how much harder it would be to get through things or to find yourself. And that's why I think creating opportunities for people to experience art and to like know that they can do it, that permission that that person basically gave you, like that's so important.
No, exactly. A lot of times there's this kind of vision of the art world that it's very much an elite thing that only the super rich can afford. Everyone deserves the ability to express themselves creatively. As a kid, I was a pretty privileged. I am a white girl living in Seattle, which is a pretty expensive neighborhood, and I'm middle class. So I didn't have a lot of exposure to things. I was a big reader, and I remember about in 5th grade, did this thing called the Global Reading Challenge where they give us like 10 books to read. These books were about what it was like growing up in China under the one-child policy. Another one was about one girl who she was in a Japanese internment camp writing letters to another girl who was dealing with segregation in schools. So for me, I believe that art is the most valuable form of education because these concepts and these experiences wouldn't have been things that I was exposed to and wouldn't have made me the person I am today if it wasn't through art. Art is one of the best ways that we can tell stories and share information. It is kind of an essential way for humans to communicate with each other, and I think a really good way to engage empathy.
That's really great. Why is it important for young people to engage in art in general, and especially right now?
Young people have a really important perspective on these things because we're experiencing them in a different way than other people are. Adults are going through like their experience in quarantine. It's really different than teenagers' experience in quarantine. It's also really important because I think that it's a great way to voice what issues matter to us. Each generation, they kind of have different issues that matter to them more and that they have different perspectives on different issues. And I think that we're kind of seeing young people use their voices to talk about issues that matter to them. You know, like art is a form of activism. We deserve to have a say because these issues are going to be what's impacting us in the long term.
I mean, I think exactly what you said. I am of the mind that the young people should just save us. Save us. Because there's that personal investment. Young people are doing some really amazing things, and talking about structures that are broken, I think one of the structures that's broken is around thinking that there's only one type of valuable knowledge, and that is the knowledge of book smarts. Growing up, I always thought I was a huge, honestly, idiot because I wasn't book smart and I didn't do well in school. It took me like forever to figure out like, oh, that's just not the way I am intelligent. It's so important for us to, as a society, figure out how to value artistic intelligence and cultural intelligence as a just as important thing as being able to write JavaScript or something. I don't know.
How have you seen the definition of art change during your career/arts going experience?
So I ran a magazine from 2004 to 2016, and I'm actually starting it up again right now. When it first started, it was very much about music reviews, and at the time it was very big buckets of genre. And by 2011, 2012, there is no clear delineations between the genres. So much stuff just like blends into each other. One artist can be so many things, and I feel like that's happening with music for sure, but also across lines. Everything's just kind of like blending together into a big cohesive definition of what art is rather than being as siloed.
No, exactly. I think that art isn't made in a silo, and I think that if you talk to most arts people, they're not confined to just one specific medium. I think that it's just really interesting to see how now we're kind of realizing that being an artist doesn't necessarily mean you do one specific type of art for the rest of your life. Is that it's like all art is kind of variations of each other. They're all kind of connected together, you know?
What kind of art are you watching or engaging in right now?
Even though I'm a big film person, I haven't been watching a lot of films during quarantine, but I have been listening to lots of music recently, and I actually have my lovely pink bass over here. Hey. So I've been practicing my bass a lot more, and I've been playing it more and trying to learn new songs and playing my bass, which is something I hadn't really focused on before. I've also been listening to a lot of new albums. Recently, I've listened to Fiona Apple's new album, and also one of my favorite rappers, Princess Nokia.
Nice. That's great.
How about you?
I don't even know. Every day is a blur. I had this really interesting experience last night, though. So my mom recommended to me, it's on Netflix. It's terrible, but it's the Taiwanese version of Charles Dickens' Tale of Two Cities. But what was really interesting to me is like you hear people talking about, oh, I just saw myself on screen for the first time, or like it's so important for people of color or LGBTQ people or whoever to make films because then they can see themselves represented on screen. And, you know, like people talk about that, but I hadn't really ever felt this specific way when watching this specific movie, because even though I've seen Asian people on screen plenty of times, I've seen Jackie Chan movies, you know, whatever, I saw Crazy Rich Asians, but it wasn't the same as watching this because it was a very specific American born Chinese experience that's very different from an Asian experience, and it's also very different from like Asian American experience where they don't speak the language. So I don't know, it was a deep experience for me watching this very terrible soap opera.
When people say they want representation, it's not just, they don't want just Oscar-winning films. They want like really shitty Hallmark movies too.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep. Because they scratch a different type of itch. It's, you know, the bad Hallmark movie. There's a mood for that when you don't want to watch like a nicely produced thing all the time.
No, exactly. I kind of remember that feeling. Remember Adventure Time? I loved it when I was a kid. There's these two characters, Princess Bubblegum and Marceline the Vampire. And I remember they kissed on screen for the first time. It was a really like cute moment for me because as someone who's like, I'm bisexual, and so it was really meaningful to see in both the show that like I loved as a kid, and that it was something that it's like, it's not like a sexualized thing where it's just like, this is something that kids can see and it's normal, and it's just, I understand what you mean, Mark.
I love that. It was great.
It was really great talking to you too.
You too. It was a great combo.
You're very articulate and you have a great way of like talking, I guess.
You guys are very articulate. This is a great combo.